There's a particular kind of silence that settles over a man's life when he makes the decision to walk away from his family. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't announce itself with fanfare or explanation. It simply exists, heavy and deliberate, like a door closing in an empty house. Society has a script for men. Be strong, be the provider, be the rock. Honor your father and mother. Keep the family together no matter what. Men are taught from boyhood that loyalty to family is non-negotiable, that walking away is weakness, that cutting contact is the ultimate betrayal of masculinity itself. But what happens when that family is the source of your deepest pain? What happens when the script you've been handed is destroying you from the inside out? Right now, thousands of men are living in quiet estrangement from their families. Sons who no longer speak to their fathers. Brothers who've disappeared from family gatherings. Men who've chosen silence over suffering. And yet their stories remain largely invisible, buried under layers of shame, guilt, and the crushing weight of societal expectation. This isn't about anger. This isn't about being difficult or ungrateful. This is about survival. This is about men who've reached a psychological breaking point and made the agonizing choice to prioritize their mental health over their bloodline. In this video, we're exploring the hidden psychology behind why men cut off contact with their families. We'll examine the unique pressures men face, the toxic patterns that make distance necessary, and the profound internal battle between duty and self-preservation. If you've ever wondered why a man would make such a drastic decision, or if you're struggling with this choice yourself, this is the conversation we need to have. This is the truth behind the silence. Let's begin. When we talk about family estrangement, we often overlook a critical factor. Men typically wait longer to walk away, not because their pain is less intense, but because the psychological barriers they face are uniquely reinforced by gender expectations. From childhood, boys learn a devastating equation. Emotional expression equals weakness. Needing space equals failure. Setting boundaries equals disrespect. By the time they reach adulthood, many men have internalized the belief that their role is to endure, to fix, to remain steadfast, regardless of personal cost. This creates what psychologists call the masculine endurance trap. A man will absorb years of criticism, neglect, or outright abuse while telling himself he should be strong enough to handle it. He'll minimize his own hurt because he's been taught that men don't complain, don't need emotional support, and certainly don't walk away from responsibility. The result is profound. Men often suffer in complete isolation before making the decision to cut contact. They don't talk about it with friends because vulnerability feels like exposure. They don't seek therapy because asking for help contradicts everything they've learned about self-reliance. They simply carry the weight year after year until their psychological infrastructure begins to crack. When a man finally reaches the point of no contact, it's rarely impulsive. It represents the collapse of a system he's been desperately trying to hold together, often for decades. The silence before the break is deafening, filled with conversations never had, pain never expressed, and needs never voiced. This is where estrangement begins for men. Not with a dramatic confrontation, but with years of swallowing words, suppressing needs, and slowly disappearing into a role that demands everything while offering nothing in return. For many men, the decision to cut contact centers on one relationship above all others: the relationship with their father. The father-son dynamic carries immense psychological weight. Your father is supposed to be your blueprint for masculinity, your model for what it means to be a man in the world. He's the first mirror you look into to understand your own worth, capability, and place in the hierarchy of life. But what happens when that mirror reflects only criticism, absence, or conditional approval? The father wound manifests in countless ways. There's the authoritarian father who rules through intimidation, who sees his son's emotions as challenges to his authority. who believes respect is earned through fear. Growing up under this kind of dominance teaches a boy that his feelings don't matter, that his voice is irrelevant, and that love is something you must constantly prove yourself worthy of receiving. Then there's the emotionally absent father, physically present but psychologically unreachable. This father provides materially but offers nothing emotionally. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't share vulnerabilities. He exists in the house like a distant planet, gravitationally bound but impossibly far away. Sons of emotionally absent fathers often grow up feeling fundamentally unseen, as if their inner world is simply not important enough to warrant attention. Perhaps most damaging is the competitive father, the man who views his son not as someone to nurture, but as someone to surpass him, who can't celebrate his son's achievements without diminishing them, who treats every success as a threat to his own status. These fathers create an impossible situation. The son can never be good enough to earn approval, yet also can never be better without triggering resentment. The psychological impact of these patterns runs deep. A man with an unhealed father wound often struggles with self-worth, perfectionism, and an underlying belief that he is fundamentally inadequate. He may recreate toxic dynamics in his own relationships, either by becoming like his father or by compulsively trying to prove he's different. Cutting contact with a father is rarely just about the present. It's about releasing decades of trying to earn something that was never actually available. It's about finally accepting that the man who was supposed to teach you how to be human couldn't fulfill that role. And for many men, walking away from that relationship, despite all the guilt and social judgment, is the first step toward discovering who they actually are beneath the wound. Beyond individual relationships, many men face a broader family dynamic that makes estrangement necessary. The expectation that they perform a very specific version of masculinity regardless of who they actually are. In many family systems, men are assigned narrow roles. The provider who measures his worth by his paycheck. The fixer who must solve everyone's problems while revealing none of his own. The stoic pillar who absorbs stress without showing strain. The successor who must carry forward family expectations, traditions, and often businesses or legacies he never chose. These roles leave no room for complexity, for struggle, for evolution. They demand performance over authenticity. When a man begins to question these roles, when he expresses different values, different goals, different needs, the family system often reacts with alarm. He's accused of being selfish, of abandoning his responsibilities, of betraying what it means to be a man in the family. The message is clear. Your individuality is less important than your function. This creates an impossible choice. Stay and slowly lose yourself, or leave and face the label of being a bad son, bad brother, or Many men describe this dynamic as suffocation. Every family gathering feels like putting on a costume. Every conversation requires filtering your true thoughts and feelings through an acceptable masculine template. Over time, the gap between who you are and who you're expected to be becomes unbearable. The decision to cut contact often comes when a man realizes that his family will never accept the real him. They love the version they've constructed, the role they've assigned, but they've never actually known the person beneath the performance. Walking away isn't about rejecting family. It's about refusing to continue erasing yourself for the comfort of others. It's about choosing psychological survival over social approval. And for men who've spent their entire lives being told their worth is determined by how well they serve others, that choice represents a radical, terrifying act of self-preservation. There's a specific moment in the psychology of estrangement that often goes unrecognized. The moment when endurance transforms from strength into self-destruction. Men are conditioned to endure, to push through pain, to handle difficulty without complaint. These aren't inherently negative traits. In many contexts, resilience and perseverance serve us well. But when applied to toxic family dynamics, endurance becomes a trap. Because the truth is, some situations shouldn't be endured. Some relationships shouldn't be preserved. Some pain isn't meant to be carried. The breaking point comes when a man's body begins to rebel against what his mind has been rationalizing. Chronic anxiety before family calls, physical tension during visits, sleep disruption after interactions. These aren't signs of weakness. They're signals that his nervous system can no longer maintain the fiction that everything is fine. For some men, the breaking point is triggered by a specific event, a boundary crossed one too many times, a cruel comment that finally penetrates the armor, a moment of such profound disrespect that it becomes impossible to justify staying. For others, there's no single incident. Instead, there's a gradual awakening, a slow realization that you've been living in a state of perpetual defense, that you can't remember the last time you felt truly relaxed around your family, that the person you become in their presence is someone you don't recognize or respect. The decision to cut contact comes when the cost of staying exceeds the cost of leaving. When preserving the relationship means destroying yourself. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of male estrangement. From the outside, it looks like giving up, like weakness, like an inability to handle difficult family dynamics. But from the inside, it's the opposite. It's the moment a man finally becomes strong enough to stop sacrificing his well-being for the sake of appearances. It's the moment endurance stops being virtue and starts being survival. And choosing to survive, even when it means walking away from everything you've been taught is sacred, is its own form of courage. The moment after cutting contact is rarely what people imagine. There's no triumphant sense of liberation, no immediate peace. Instead, there's a complex emotional storm that many men are completely unprepared to navigate. Guilt arrives first and heaviest. Men who cut contact often battle intense self-judgment. Society's messages echo relentlessly. A real man would have handled this differently. A strong person wouldn't need distance. You're abandoning your responsibilities. You're being selfish. This guilt is compounded by the fact that most people in a man's life won't understand his decision. Friends offer unhelpful advice. Just talk to them. They're your family. Life's too short. These well-meaning words only deepen the isolation because they reveal how invisible his suffering has been. But beneath the guilt, something else emerges. Relief. Profound, unexpected, sometimes shameful relief. The anxiety that's been your constant companion begins to fade. You stop bracing for criticism. You stop rehearsing conversations. Your body starts to remember what relaxation feels like. This relief often triggers more guilt because you've been taught that good men don't feel better when distancing from family. But the relief is evidence of something important. The relationship was costing you more than you realized. Then comes the work of rebuilding. When you cut contact with your family, you don't just lose relationships. You lose your reference point for identity. If you're no longer someone's son, someone's brother, who are you? This question forces men into territory they've often avoided their entire lives. Introspection, emotional processing, the examination of beliefs, values, and patterns inherited without consent. It's uncomfortable work. It requires sitting with feelings men have been trained to outrun. But it's also where transformation happens. Many men discover parts of themselves that were suppressed for decades. Creative interests deemed impractical. Emotional depth labeled as weakness. Worldviews that conflicted with family ideology. Without the constant pressure to conform, these parts can finally emerge. Therapy becomes crucial during this period, though many men resist it initially. Working with someone who understands family trauma and male psychology provides a framework for processing what's happened and developing healthier patterns going forward. The rebuilding phase isn't linear. Some days you feel strong in your decision. Other days you question everything. Holidays are especially difficult. Those cultural moments that spotlight family and make your absence feel like a spotlight on failure. But gradually, something shifts. You begin to construct a life based on your actual values rather than inherited obligations. You form relationships with people who know the real you, not the performed version. You discover that family can be chosen, built from friends, partners, mentors, and communities that offer what your biological family couldn't. This is where healing truly begins, not in the moment of leaving, but in the slow, intentional work of becoming whole. In the end, the psychology of men who cut off contact with their families isn't about rejection. It's about redefinition. These men are redefining what loyalty means. True loyalty doesn't require self-destruction. It doesn't demand that you set yourself on fire to keep others warm. They're redefining what strength looks like. Real strength isn't endless endurance of harm. It's the courage to acknowledge when something isn't working and the wisdom to choose differently. They're redefining what family means. Family isn't determined solely by biology or obligation. It's built through mutual respect, genuine care, and the freedom to be fully yourself without fear. These redefinitions don't come easy. They challenge everything men have been taught. They require confronting deep shame, social judgment, and the grief of losing relationships you desperately wished could have been different. But on the other side of that confrontation is something profound. The possibility of living authentically. The chance to break cycles rather than continue them. The opportunity to model for the next generation that your mental health matters, that boundaries are healthy, and that walking away from toxicity isn't weakness, it's wisdom. If you're a man considering estrangement or living with the aftermath of that decision, know this. Your pain is valid. Your choice is legitimate. You're not broken, weak, or failing at masculinity. You're human, and you deserve relationships that honor that humanity. The path of estrangement is difficult and lonely, but you're not walking it alone. Thousands of men have made this choice before you. Thousands are making it right now. And while society may not yet fully understand or support your decision, your well-being doesn't require their approval. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve a life not defined by pain you didn't create. And choosing that life, despite all the obstacles and judgment, is perhaps the bravest thing a man can do. The silence after estrangement isn't empty. It's the quiet space where healing begins, where you finally get to meet yourself without performance or pretense, and where you discover that choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you whole. If this video resonated with you, consider subscribing. We explore the complex corners of human psychology here every week, with particular attention to the experiences that often go unspoken. And if you feel comfortable, share your thoughts or story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what another man needs to hear to know he's not alone. Take care of yourself. You deserve to heal.